The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, if you've already joined us, we'll begin the webinar in a couple of minutes, so please make sure you're able to connect and have audio access. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Lauren Smith, and I'm a program associate in the Buildings Efficiency Program at SWEEP, the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's webinar. Our topic today is the Buildings Performance Database, which is a new project of the U.S. Department of Energy. This presentation is brought to you by SWEEP and the Western Cooling Efficiency Center. SWEEP is a public interest organization that promotes energy efficiency in a 6-state region, including Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. And the Buildings Efficiency Program at SWEEP works with local governments, the building industry, consumers, and utilities to increase energy efficiency in buildings through energy code adoption and enforcement, green building or above code programs, and other technical assistance. The Western Cooling Efficiency Center partners with HVAC stakeholders to stimulate the development of heating and cooling technologies for buildings that reduce energy demand and water consumption. WCEC engages in primary research, innovation, laboratory testing, field demonstrations, and advocacy with an emphasis on climate-appropriate cooling technologies. If you'd like more information about our current projects, you can download publications from our website. Here are a couple of our most recent publications. SWEEP's transportation, oh, and I didn't click the slide. Here we go. SWEEP's transportation team recently completed a report entitled Transportation Fuels for the Southwest. This report compares the life cycle energy use and emissions from gasoline, CNG, and electric vehicles. It also provides information on which vehicle type is cleanest today and in the future for the Southwest. And on the right, the Western Cooling Efficiency Center has just finished revising a report on HVAC equipment demographics and capacity analysis for the multi-tenant light commercial project. The multi-tenant light commercial project aims to enable deep energy and demand savings in existing small and medium-sized shopping centers by creating, testing, and demonstrating integrated retrofit solutions. You can download these reports using the links listed on the current slide. Okay, so January's webinar topic will be HVAC in schools, characterizing the market and showcasing proven technologies to help maximize Prop 39 funds. The speaker will be David Grupp, who is Associate Engineer at the Western Cooling Efficiency Center. We hope that you can join us next month, and we're going to be sending more information on the webinar soon. Going back to today's webinar, our topic again is the Buildings Performance Database. And this is basically a database of anonymous building data, both commercial and residential. And it also includes a retrofit analysis tool, which helps building owners compare different energy efficiency upgrades. Our speaker today is Jessica Knapstein from the Department of Energy. And on a logistical note, before we begin, please note that there are two ways to ask questions and provide comments during the webinar. You can type your question into the comment box in your navigation pane, or you can use the raise hand feature, which will signal for us to unmute you. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation, where we have some time allocated for Q&A. So throughout the webinar, you'll be muted, but if you raise your hand at the end, I can unmute you and you can speak through your phone or computer. And lastly, for your reference, I've listed our contact information on the current slide. Please feel free to contact us if you have questions about today's webinar, or if you'd like more information on our current projects. You can also visit our websites listed here. I will now turn it over to Jessica, who will present on the Buildings Performance Database.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Lauren, for that introduction. Let's see. All right, can everyone see the slide? Hope so. So as Lauren said, I'm going to be talking to you today about the Buildings Performance Database, but I'm also going to sort of put that contextually into the larger data ecosystem that the Department of Energy is working on. And we're going to talk a little bit about sort of where the DOE sees their role in this ecosystem, where they can help, and key pieces that they can provide. So the two main pieces we're going to talk about today are the Buildings Performance Database and the Building Energy Data Exchange Specification. Our vision is to make energy data clearly traceable. If we understand what's driving variations in building performance, it will help people identify opportunities at the energy efficiency and investment decision-making level. And public sector actors, like energy efficiency program administrators, can tailor the interventions to the local markets and conditions and opportunities that they see. Our role, as we see it, is to develop some of the foundational tools that the private sector can build on, and to also help develop some common definitions and methodologies to help all the tools in both the private and public sector to be more interoperable. So the next couple of slides are going to kind of outline the ecosystem in a flowchart manner. So on the left here, as you all know, we have data coming in from many sources, but for the purposes of our conversation today, we're going to focus on whole building information like ECMs, equipment lists, things like that. So as we've kind of been working through this ecosystem, we've seen that the majority of data on the market right now, the majority of data people are dealing with is large, or at large is basic building information. That could be energy consumption at various levels, or perhaps asset data when it gets a little more detailed. So a lot of people are using Portfolio Manager, which is tracking operational characteristics as well. And then there's public information like tax records and city planning. So people are using diagnostic tools to identify opportunities in individual buildings, and Portfolio Manager is probably the most widely used. That gives you an overall sense of how the building performs. You enter consumption and use information, and it gives you a normalized sense of whether your building is good or bad, but you may not know whether that high or low score is being driven by the physical or operational characteristics of the building. So we've developed some rating tools, the Home Energy Score and the Commercial Building Energy Asset Score, that are drilling into some of the more physical characteristics of the buildings. So the user would enter equipment, and it gives you a sense of the capital opportunities available based on models that it generates. And there's a minimum amount of data you need to enter into either of those tools, but the user can enter sort of more detailed information, and it will give them a more accurate result in the end if they choose to do so. There's also private tools, obviously, that are offered. So all these tools and databases are producing data, and all this is being generated in a decentralized fashion. So we've created the Buildings Performance Database, which I'm going to show you today, as a centralizer of all this data. It's a voluntary platform, so it's kind of a crowdsourced effort where people believe in the cause and then give us their data. And then the LBNL takes that data, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab that is, takes that data with and applies some very rigorous procedures to remove all the errors and outliers. They do not apply any defaults to any of the data, so it is all 100% real building data. And they also anonymize it, so that when you're in the Buildings Performance Database, you analyze the data similar to the way you would analyze census data, if anyone's ever been on that website. You can drill into specific geographic areas or specific building types and understand relationships between building age or size and energy consumption in a statistical manner. But you can't reveal any individual record, and we'll be coming back to that in the demonstration. All right, so next I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Building Energy Data Exchange specification. We're committed within the federal government to using the same language for our set of tools so that we can have interoperability between them and they can speak to each other in the same language. So we're developing this common data format, hoping to get a lot of input from the industry on its development so that it might turn into something that is not only useful in the federal government but also useful as a standardizer outside of that. So our goal in the end, our sort of uber goal, is that this ecosystem of interoperable public and private data tools can all speak to each other in a common language. And I actually didn't mention the SEED platform. I don't know if some of you are familiar with that. It's a tool that we designed to aid cities and states that have benchmarking and disclosure laws with their own internal data management. All right, so I'm going to dive sort of into the BPD right now a little bit more specifically. So if you guys have any questions on the data ecosystem, sort of hold them till the end and we will get to you. All right, so this is the BPD. It is live. You can access it today. We have over 1,000 records in it. This is actually an incorrect screenshot. And it is growing. It is growing every day. And as I said, it's all voluntary, so people believe in the system as much as we do, and we're really proud of that. So the tool is designed to understand trends in physical and operational characteristics of energy performance of real buildings. Our sort of theory of change here is that if we can compile a large enough data set of real buildings, then the market will be able to assess opportunities, forecast project performance, and most importantly, quantify performance risk. So the model will give you a projection of savings, but the BPD gives you a range of savings achieved by real buildings so that you can better identify and define your risk profile. And the outcomes of that would be kind of a virtuous cycle of more and more data that will only bolster it and make it more useful. So more energy efficiency projects and more data. The design principles that the Buildings Performance Database were built on is that it only contains actual data. So nothing fake, no defaults, no anecdotal evidence, no assumptions, no nothing. All real data. And if there happen to be any sort of gaps in the data, it just goes in as is. So if you have one building with multiple records, as long as it has the minimum amount of data points, which are sort of that basic building information, it just goes in as that. And if it's missing anything, it's just missing it, and it doesn't get included in the analysis as you're doing it in the tool. And you'll probably see how that kind of plays out when I'm showing the demo. So the BPD enables statistical analysis without revealing information about individual buildings. So as I mentioned earlier, you can drill into the data. You can go all the way down to the zip code level, but you can never see one building. And anytime you sort of playing around with the variables and drilling into the data, it will never reveal any outputs that contain less than 10 buildings. So you have absolutely no chance of ever revealing any individual building. So the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab cleanses and validates the data and translates it into the standard format, which I discussed earlier, the Building Energy Data Exchange specification. So in addition to the tools that are built into the Buildings Performance database right now, there's 2 live tools and 1 in process. We also have a third-party application programming interface that will be available very soon, where software tools can have live links to the database and use that to leverage the information that we have in it. Also, the stipulations of sort of the security and privacy are still on the data, so anybody who's pinging the database using the API will not be able to drill in past 10 buildings or past the zip code level. But they can use it to analyze information in comparison to information that they might have, and use it for an internal purpose or whatever you might be able to think of. And we've gotten a lot of interest in that so far. So as I said, we just recently breached the 100,000 building mark, and we're growing very quickly. We just got a huge data contribution from San Diego Gas and Electric of several 100,000 records. So the database is, sort of growing into itself. Below here are some of the data contributors that we have in the Buildings Performance database right now. We've got the EIA, CBEX, and REX data sets. We've got all of the federal buildings. We have all of the portfolio manager data that has been engineer verified, so none of the sort of junk records that are in there, but everything else. We have buildings from several places with benchmarking and disclosure laws. And we also have energy efficiency program data from places like Pennsylvania Keystone and VIC, and many private data sets, as well as we just recently got the Better Buildings Challenge data all in here. So now I'm going to move on to a demo of the Buildings Performance database. So this is our Department of Energy homepage. So if you type in Buildings Performance database, this is what you will find. You can access the tool via this link right here, and there's lots of information about it on the left-hand side here that you can sort of toggle back and forth. So if you click on this button, you will get to the Buildings Performance database. It will ask you to sign up or log in. I have already logged in. So what you're seeing right now when you land, it automatically is toggled to commercial buildings. So as you can see, we have 117,000 buildings in the database right now scattered across the United States, and you can use this map to sort of see where they're concentrated. And we're only looking at commercial buildings right now, so we have 29,000. And interestingly, you'll notice by this ratio that we have more residential buildings in the Building Performance database currently, but we actually have a larger percentage of commercial buildings based on the sort of the aggregate numbers. So a larger percentage of commercial buildings out of the entire United States than residential buildings, just because there's so many residential buildings. So down here, we're looking at the peer group tool. You're seeing, based only on this variable that we've chosen, you're seeing all the buildings in the United States, the number of buildings versus the EUI. So let's choose a state here. We'll choose California. Hopefully there's some people from California on the call, and we can get rid of this so we can sort of see a little bit better. So right now we're looking at the number of buildings versus the energy use intensity, kBTU per square foot per year, and our median is 134, and that's based on source consumption. You can also look at this in a scatter plot view. I'll just click on that. And as you can see here, we've just sort of changed the look of our data a little bit. You can also, now that we've changed the scatter plot, you have a little bit more options as to how you view the data. You can actually, if you did bar chart, you can also look at this via site consumption, electrical consumption, or fuel consumption. And when you toggle to scatter plot, you can look at it based on year built, hours occupied, and floor area. You can also, a fun tool is if you know the information from your building, you can add it in and sort of drag it around to see where it lies in the larger data set, so sort of see how you're performing relative to the peer group that you've defined based on these variables to the left here. And I'm going to, so as you can see, you can sort of go into any of these. You can choose the floor area you want to look at. You can choose the year built that you want, that you're interested in. And each time you do this, the data will change. So you're sort of implementing more and more variables on top of the data, on top of the analysis. Featured examples over here, so you can just choose one and it will pre-choose all the variables for you and give you sort of an outline of it. And I'm just going to cheat really quickly and show you guys the retrofit analysis tool. So this tool was designed to show in a spread of the likely savings that you might achieve from making an asset change. So in this situation, we're looking at commercial buildings in California still that are office buildings. We've selected our facility type here as all office buildings, as you can see. So what we're looking at right here is the probability of the savings, the percentage change in energy use intensity. So right now we have a 60% probability that our EUI will decrease 10% or more. So if we are a little bit more risky and we decide that we don't need the 60% probability, we're comfortable with the 37% probability, you can see that our EUI also decreases a little bit more. This is on cooling right now, which is probably most relevant for you folks, but you can also look at many other different kind of areas where you can constitute or institute ECMs. I'm sure there'll be many questions on this, so I'm just going to kind of show you guys this while you have your attention, and then you can give me your questions afterwards. All right, so I'm going to toggle back to the presentation now and keep your questions on that till the end. So the value that we sort of see for energy efficiency programs coming from the BPD is that you will be able to use this to help design programs through increasing your understanding of local market conditions and opportunities. So you can use those variables on the left-hand side there in the tool to sort of craft your little peer group of buildings that you're interested in affecting and see how they look, based specifically on your geographic region. These are all real buildings, as I said, so this is hopefully useful information to you to designing your program. And we also thought that it might help participants in the programs assess the opportunities in their own buildings. One of the things that we've heard from the market as we've been analyzing that is that they hear a lot of different values that are forecasted for their savings for different energy conservation measures, and we're hoping that they'll be able to use this tool to vet investments in specific energy conservation measures so that they have a little bit more confidence in their investments. And another opportunity we're hoping for sort of in the medium to long term is that if we can reach scale and get enough data, that this tool could actually be used to support measurement and verification of programs. Look at sort of snapshots of before and after of specific geographic types or building type and compare them. So now I'm going to move on to the Building Energy Data Exchange specification. So the Building Energy Data Exchange specification, or BEADS as we like to call it, is a common format for empirical data about building energy performance. It was put together based on 40 common data formats, so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We've stitched together sort of all of the most widely used data formats, including the data format Portfolio Manager, Ascribe to, as well as HPXML, if you're familiar with that. And it covers, right now, the BEADS data covers equipment and operational characteristics, energy consumption, ECM project data, and the BEADS version 1, which is currently being drafted by Lawrence Berkeley National Lab with input from the industry, will cover modeling data, project financials, on-site renewables, and many more. So what the BEADS does is create common data fields, definitions, units of measurement, file formats, so that it is easier for systems to speak to each other. So it was originally developed for use by the Department of Energy solely. The goal within the Department of Energy was to make all the tools interoperable and leverage the taxpayer dollar better by not having people sitting around data crunching and sort of data mapping between tools over and over again. Just sort of create the foundation and allow all of them to be built in the future on this and convert all of the functioning tools to it right now. So as I said, Portfolio Manager obviously is included in that, and that is an EPA tool, but it is one of the larger ones. So right now, the Building Energy Data Exchange specification is supporting the Building Performance Database, which I just showed you. So anytime data comes into the tool, it is mapped to the Building Energy Data Exchange specification by analysts and researchers at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. It also supports the Commercial Building Energy Asset Score and Home Energy Scores, which I mentioned earlier, are the diagnostic tools used by building owners to identify investment opportunities, and data collection for some of our grant programs, and for analysis conducted through the Uniform Methods Project. So as we were creating this, we actually did interviews with industry leaders in the field, and some of the sentiments echoed by the energy efficiency programs was that there was a need for a standardizing format in the marketplace, and their biggest concern was that they were sort of doing the same thing. They were getting all this data from multiple places, and the bulk of their time and resources was being spent, data crunching and mapping the data and cleaning the data. And so we really hope that this can be used externally, and it would lower the cost and effort required for them to assess savings and sort of just kind of get the ball rolling and grease the wheels, if you will. So currently, and actually tomorrow, as you will see, we are kicking off the stakeholder engagement process. The Lawrence Berkeley National Lab is leading this. So the Department of Energy will be there participating, but they are not leading it. And they're going to speak with stakeholders about how to develop the version 1 so that it can not only be used internally at the Department of Energy, but how it can best be used externally as well. And if you are interested in getting involved in that, we are still looking for participants. You can look at the website here, and you can also contact this web address or this email address here and express your interest. You can also go to, if you just Google, deeds, you will find information about this process on the Robb Associates LBNL websites. And this will be going on into mid-2014, so there's a lot of time to get involved. And if you are interested in, have tools that you either think would like to be interoperable with any of the Department of Energy's tools or federal government tools, or are interested in adopting this internally and would like to sort of tailor it to your purposes and make sure that your sentiments are expressed within the format, then we would love to get your input. So this is the contact information for the Building Performance Database. If you have any questions, you can email us here, and this is the contact information for the Building Energy Data Exchange specification. And that is actually all I have, Lauren, so we can go to questions if you would like. That was a little bit quicker than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, sure, that's okay. I'm sure we have a lot of questions. Thank you, Jessica, for that overview. We will now take questions or comments from the audience, so please type your questions into the questions box or click on the raise hand button and I will come around to unmute you. Any questions, comments, or ideas you might have are welcome at this time. I'm looking. Okay, I'm just now seeing a question about the connection. I think it's a little hard to hear, so hopefully that has been resolved. Okay. I think there's another one. Let me just scroll to it. Okay, here's the question. Does the database accept modeled energy performance, or is it exclusively measured energy performance?
It is exclusively measured energy performance. No model data is in the Building Performance Database. But the Building Energy Data Exchange specification in the next version will cover model data. So the definitions will sort of exist so that the model data can be integrated into other Department of Energy tools. But the Building Performance Database is specifically designed to, sort of the long-term goal is to unlock financial markets. And in order to do that, in order to have that information so that financial investors can have the confidence and sort of create their risk portfolio, their risk spread, they need the real data.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, I actually had a question. You mentioned the SEED platform, and the presentation obviously focuses on the BPD, but I was just a little curious to hear more about the SEED platform and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually am not a associate on that project, but I can give you the information I have, and if you have any more information, feel free to email the Wilderness Performance Database website or email address rather, and I will forward your question along to the appropriate parties. So the SEED platform is designed for cities and states who have who are under the benchmarking and disclosure laws, so that they can, a lot of the data. It's kind of the same idea of the Wilderness Performance Database, that it's just a way for them to integrate all of these different sources of data. So they have information coming in. A lot of the buildings or a lot of the cities and states that are implementing these are requiring that the buildings use Portfolio Manager to send their data along. But then if the city wants to combine that data with tax records or city planning information to better leverage the data or to contribute it and adhere to different policies that they have put in place, it's very difficult to do this because a lot of the data is not, the definitions are not the same, the identifiers are not the same, so they have to spend a lot of their time and resources, which are already stretched thin, on creating their own systems of integrating all of this data and sort of compiling it all, and the SEED platform helps you with that. So it creates, it's a cloud-based database, and each city or state has its own instance, and they tailor that instance to the kinds of information that they're going to be collecting, and also the kind of regulations or policies that they're going to need to adhere to. So they're basically tailoring the inputs and the outputs, and it's very user-friendly, sort of walks you through the process, and it lives on the cloud, so you don't have to worry about sort of storing all that data anywhere. It's supported by the Department of Energy. And, the data comes in, and it's supposed to be sort of, once you have it all set up, it's a seamless transition of in and out.
Okay, thank you. I think we have another question from attendees. Okay, so here's the question. How large a role will Portfolio Manager data play in terms of standardization of data?
So the Portfolio Manager terms and definitions were taken 100% into account when the Building Energy Data Exchange specification was tailored. They actually, because the Portfolio Manager precedes the Building Energy Data Exchange specification, so they had terms and definitions in place to use in their tool before we started to standardize all of our tools. And we needed the Portfolio Manager data to be able to speak to ours, and so it is matched up 100%. It will continue to be matched up 100% into the future. That being said, many other data collection practices and definitions and policies were taken into account to create BEAD. So 39 other formats were taken into account, and all of them sort of are stitched together. And Portfolio Manager actually covers a lot of information that that BEADS it's outside of the scope of the Building Energy Data Exchange specification, and the same that goes vice versa. Portfolio Manager actually doesn't cover some of the information that BEADS covers. So imagine it sort of being a piece within it, but it is not sort of the overarching driving force.
Okay, I think we have a related question. Since kilowatts or peak demand plays such a large role relative to cost of power, how can we depend on Portfolio Manager when they don't record kilowatts?
That is a good question. I'm going to have to defer you to the folks at the EPA for that one. As much I know quite a bit about Portfolio Manager, but that's a little bit too nuanced for me.
Okay. Let me just check and see if there is anyone raising their hand. And no, not yet. I think everyone is typing. I had one more question for you, Jessica.
Okay.
So have you had any utilities give you large sets of data, or is that too complicated in trying to get it from their customers?
No, actually. So the largest, one of the largest sets of data we've got is from the California Public Utility Commission, and they worked with us sort of almost in the beginning of the Buildings Performance Database, and we're very excited to get their data into it. And we've got other smaller utilities as well. We've got information from Gainesville, Florida, and a few other places. So yeah, utilities are they're actually one of the primary sort of markets for this. So.
Okay, thank you. And let me just check once more. Does anyone else have any questions? I'm trying. This is a little hard to navigate the questions pane. I don't see any additional questions, so we can go ahead and end the webinar there. We're going to end a little early, but that's okay.
Yeah, can I just say to the audience that, you know, that I'm going to toggle back here really quickly to the tool. So we are designing this tool for use for you and many others, so, you know, software implementers, the market writ large, and so on. And there's actually lots of functionalities that are being added to this tool on a daily basis. So not only are the buildings increasing on a daily basis, but we're actually adding, you know, statistical analysis functionalities. And anything that you can kind of think of to do in the Buildings Performance Database, so anything that you would want to use with this data, is possible with the Buildings Performance Database. The only limitation that we have right now is the amount of records in the Buildings Performance Database. So you even see right here, we've narrowed down our data set to 275 buildings, and I've only instituted 3 variables. So the more buildings we have, the more variables we can have, because we can't put a variable on here if there's only 5 buildings that have contributed data that adhere to that that variable, because we cannot release that information. It will make it too obvious sort of where the building is and allow people to drill down too much based on our privacy and security standards. So the more data we have, the more functionalities will be added to this tool, and the stronger it will become, and hopefully the more energy efficiency conservation measures that will be instituted in the marketplace. Some of the functionalities that are going to be added in the near term to sort of keep an eye out is you will be able to drill down to the city level as well as the zip code state level and climate zone level. And there will be a table view right here. So as you can look at around bar and scatter plot, you'll be able to hit table, and it will look a lot like an Excel spreadsheet where it will just list the numbers, so you don't have to kind of use your imagination or, you know, click on these to see what all of the different bars designate. And a couple of different other ones just sort of further quantifying or further qualifying the multifamily definition, and you know, definitely like stating that it is part of the commercial and residential, and allowing the users to kind of pick and choose how they're going to analyze that. And there's also a functionality in the retrofit analysis where model data will actually kind of come into play in this situation, where we'll allow people to look at a multivariate regression of the data, so that it's a little bit easier to interpret for those of us that are energy efficiency professionals. So there will be 2 views, the view you see now and the multivariate regression view, where we will kind of take into account, you know, obviously, I'm sure as you all know, if you're in a building where the cooling has been retrofitted from a chiller to an air source heat pump, that is probably not the only energy conservation measure that has been instituted. They've probably, you know, already instituted lighting ECMs, their heating ECMs, and so on and so forth. Or not heating, rather, but that's the term. But so right now, as it is, you can, as an energy efficiency professional, you can go in and you can set these yourself. You know, you can clear all of these and choose only T12s and only compact fluorescents and assume that they have those, and then the data changes for you. But if for the users that are not savvy, we're going to institute these measures on our own and allow them to sort of see the difference. So we think that will be extremely helpful for them. And there's sort of a pipeline of different functionalities that we are going to be adding, including a financial analysis tool that will take into account the cost of electricity and the cost of the ECMs. So if you guys have any input on this tool and would like to get involved in sort of the process, we are welcome to suggestions, and we would love your participation. So please email us, and I'll put my information back up.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. And also just to build upon your point, the more data that we have, the more analyses we can perform down to the zip code level. So these are all contribute data, and if you have some, it's a really easy process. I've been through it, and they'll pretty much take it in any format that you have. And Jessica, could you remind me, if you do want to contribute data, where you would actually send it to?
So you actually contact this this email address right here, and I personally work with you and sort of hold your hand through the process. And it is very simple, as Lauren said. We only require 5 or so fields, and that's the basic building information: age, size, 1 year of electricity consumption, and any granularity, gross square footage, and this one. Can't remember it off the top of my head. Age. Year consumption data, and location. And that's it. So it's very simple. If you have those 5 records for any building or a group of buildings or portfolio buildings, we will take them in any format that you have them, and we will take care of mapping them to the standard format. And upon request, we will even send back a high-level analysis of your buildings where we have found errors or where there's important areas that you should look into based on a statistical analysis. So, yeah.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and end there. Thank you so much, Jessica, for providing the overview. And thanks, everyone, for participating, and have a great rest of the day.